invited to join?
I mean, I thought it was just framed, the crew.
Yeah, I can give you mine, I've got it, if you wanna see the agenda.
I got it, thank you. I was able to get in.
I can do that.
It takes a second to log on and mail me other accounts. Thank you so much.
As soon as Phyllis says, got us here, the internet
She gives us a go. I think it even looks smaller, cause we added an extra table in here, so we're not quite as tight. And then with a couple absent people. Yep. A little more.
I just assumed it was for Ryan shunning, so.
Michigan,
Business guys.
top four. This is a wild season already. Welcome to the September 15th, 2022 Skokie 68 Board of Education regular meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Bell Jordan. Espinoza. Here. Joseph. Ruffner.
Here.
Sturbeck.
Here.
Sullivan. Here. Warshaw.
We have a quorum. All right, we will move right on to the public hearing of the adoption of the 2022-2023 proposed budget. I hereby open the public hearing on the adoption of the proposed budget. Mr. Berry.
So here is just a quick budget comparison to where we had our final budget last year, where the tentative budget was presented in June, and then the final budget. As you can see, most of the funds are relatively close, if not exactly right on. With the exception of the education fund, there's a little spread there, and that was mostly due to finalizing a lot of personnel people having their final salaries in and in place. And then the main increase is the capital projects budget, and the reason for that is the potential renovation work at Jane Stenson over next summer and kind of fronting some of those costs that we would actually hit in this budget year. Everything else, like I said, is relatively the same, if not exactly the same as presented in June.
That's just Jane Stenson, is that increase in the capital? Not those front pictures we took at Old Orchard? Are we paying for those later?
Those pictures we saw last time were elementary.
Those were elementary.
Yeah, those
Oh,
were elementary.
for some reason I thought they were Old Orchard. Great. That's an expensive photo project.
More on that to come.
All right, we now open this hearing to comments, is that right? From members of the public, kindly note. Do we have any members of the public? I need to give the rules on a.
I would read it anyways.
Kindly note public comment on any other issue besides the adoption of the budget should be held until the appropriate segment of the regular meeting following this hearing. Does anyone wish to comment or have any questions related to the adoption of the 22-23 proposed budget? I hereby close this public hearing on the adoption of the 2022-23 proposed budget. We will now open our meeting for public comment. I'm not seeing anyone interested in giving a public comment. We will move right along into superintendent's reports. Thank you.
Okay, so our first superintendent report up for tonight is the 6-day enrollment report. I'll turn that over to Ryan Berry to provide an
So
overview.
of the 6-day enrollment report, we had a slight decrease in our student population this year. A majority of that decrease was seen at the junior high. As you can see in our 10-year average, we're down about 100 students overall at the junior high from just about 5 years ago in 2018-19. The elementary overall, last 10 years is also down, but fairly steady the last 3 years. Our free and reduced numbers are slightly up from where they were at the last 6-day, but are very similar to where we ended up at the end of the year last year. At the beginning of the year last year, I think everybody was kind of coming back from COVID. We still had free lunch, so we didn't have a lot of people filling out the report until later when we started assessing student fees, and then we kind of brought that back up to the 50% mark. overall, our student demographics are fairly similar when it comes to race and ethnicity compared to years past. And then also the last part of the report, which I'd like to point out, I believe 20% of our students at Old Orchard this year currently did not step foot into any of our elementary schools as students. Dr. Garwood and I were discussing earlier today about our mobility rate doesn't seem very high, but I do think it's just an interesting point that 1 out of every 5 students at our junior high never went to school in one of the elementary schools. So, just an interesting look at where we currently are as a district.
So the total difference in enrollment was it, what, 21 kids less than?
21
last
kids, I
year?
think, yeah, it was about, overall, I think 1.3%. The junior high was 3.1% for just junior high students, but overall, down ever so slightly.
I wish I'd thought to reach out to you before I thought of this today. I've just read a lot, and I think other people have, about lower enrollment generally in public schools. And I don't know how much of that is anecdotal, how much of that is real. And I wasn't sure if you have any sense of how the decrease in our numbers compare to other districts near us, if those numbers have ever been shared.
Typically, we get their numbers later in the year when we have to do either the ELO Parent Center, or I start collecting them when I'm doing the financial projections and trying to break down, tax levy. And I've never looked over a long period of time, typically just year to year. Some districts around us are relatively steady. I think District 69 has increased ever so slightly, but I can definitely take a look back at the last few years. And
Absolutely no urgency to it. It was really just more curiosity, particularly with the pandemic and people coming back into what we're calling the new normal.
Absolutely.
Kind of
We've
wondering.
seen the last couple of years before the pandemic, the enrollment had been going down for several years in a row. I think the pandemic exacerbated that a little bit. We're still within sort of the normal range of the last 10 years. We're kind of at the lower end of that, that swing, but so we're not alarmed at this point.
No, curious.
Yeah, Devonshire, that obviously that move helped, but they're almost at peak attendance.
yes, I mean the 3 elementaries now are like almost identical when it comes to overall student numbers. Just a few years ago, Highland was close to 400 and Devonshire was less than 300, and now they're kind of right all about the same.
And we had looked into that. Some of that is definitely due to the change in boundaries we made, but about half of that isn't. It's just increased enrollment in Devonshire, which, what we've been hearing from several residents over there is that, it's an older neighborhood, and maybe people have started to move on into retirement and sell homes, and maybe that's opening up some more space. I think it's a combination of the two.
Any other observations? Thank you. Thanks.
All right, our second superintendent report is a classroom and school renovations update. Since we last met in August, we had several meetings and started some things in motion. Ryan will share some of that with you all.
Sure. On August 19th, Mr. Nelson, our Director of Operations, and I met with one of the lead architects over at Stetson to kind of walk through the building and get an overall sense of what we were thinking. He then proceeded to spend a couple more hours taking pictures, and mine weren't good enough from the August meeting apparently. And then on August 22nd, right before school started, Dr. Garwood, myself, Mr. Nelson, the lead architect, his other lead architect, and then 2 engineers, we all walked the building together and spent a few hours going classroom to classroom to kind of get an idea. take 200 more pictures, kind of have a set example of what each room should look like. You know, there's kind of different wings and there's different setups of different classrooms in each wing. And, you know, our ideal is to kind of standardize and have a standard for the district in every elementary classroom of what it should look like, you know, when it comes to the amount of casework, the amount of storage, you know, the amount of wall space, kind of, you know, what it should look like. What we have up here are very soft early numbers, basically just taken from our construction management firm, looking at kind of what we want to do in the space and applying a low end and a high end price per square foot. So the top number for the interior renovation is really a majority of the cost, but looking at you know, ceiling and lighting replacement, casework replacement, some framing and drywall to kind of, you know, make some of those walls that have different wood and plywood and things stuck, you know, over and over again. Reframing some things, new marker boards, tack boards, and then new ventilators, unit ventilators, sorry, not just ventilators, unit ventilators and controls. The price of that for Stetson alone is going to range between 3.1 and 3.5 million, just a soft cost. While we're at Stetson, it does need a new roof within the next year or two, so the thought is let's do it while we're there and demoing everything else. And the cost of that is between 1.5 and 1.7 million dollars. We did Highland's roof about 5 or 6 years ago, and that overall final cost was 1.2. So you can kind of see what the inflation the last few years has done to construction costs. Some of the windows need replaced, and then also the chiller at Old Orchard, which is kind of a side note, but you know that unit is definitely old and well past its lifespan and needs to be replaced for next spring or next summer. So looking at the overall low end of the budget and the overall high end of the budget, the all-in price we're looking at is between 6.7 million and 7.7 million for the project. That includes all the additional fees and everything else. Looking forward for next summer alone at Stetson.
On a side note, if you happen to open up the parent survey we sent out for strategic planning, we asked some questions about, you know, how parents prioritize, you know, the classroom environment. And anecdotally, I'll tell you, high 90-something% of parents that support renovating and updating the schools. And then on the staff side, we launched that survey as well. There it's 100%.
Please.
Yeah, so it would appear that there's definitely some support and recognition of how beneficial that might be.
Along with these costs, because of supply chain issues, it has been recommended that much like the project here, where we kind of did a pre-bid for the actual mechanical units, to do something similar, if you all feel it's, you know, something to go ahead with, doing something similar next month. I'm kind of having not necessarily pre-bid, but a request for proposal for all the mechanical units, all the unit ventilators and the chiller, because those we're looking at a probably 36-week lead time for all those units. So an RFP would be included, just like a typical bid. We would look at it, bring it to the board to approve it, and then that specific proposal would be put into the final bid later on when we get all the official drawings and everything else done. Kind of the board approving that kind of, it's not technically a pre-purchase, but it's a acceptance of a pre-proposal purchase kind of thing. Construction people all have their own terms, but it's basically a pre-purchase, but then it falls into the bid at the end so that they can control everything and it'll all be under one solid package at the end of the day.
I'm just wondering if it might be an idea also to put the windows in there, because I know a lot of supply chains with windows and doors have been taking like many, many months. So at least to ask, like, what does that supply issue look like?
Absolutely.
I know it sounds weird with windows, but I'd ordered some and it was like 8 months to get them.
And we don't want
I just have a really quick question.
Yeah.
Since we're basically redoing everything, there's so much opportunity to think about how to do the school in like a really green and efficient way. Are there conversations with the architect about how to do that?
Do you mean like
Like
building
solar
the
and
systems?
using all of, yeah, and like there's so much funding for that to happen in schools.
we haven't really talked about solar. I mean, you know, doing the roof is probably the time to start asking about something like that. They haven't brought it up, the architects haven't, but I can definitely say something to them, you know.
From my like very basic research, like there are a lot of grants for solar panels for schools. Just saying.
Any other questions? All right, I have a couple short ad hoc updates here. One in front of you, you have the newest edition of Highlights. It's the fall edition, and it's a couple days before fall officially starts, so we're a little bit ahead of the game. Those will get mailed out shortly. They just got finalized and approved today, so I thought I'd print up the copies for you. To have it. Second item is a strategic plan update. If you recall, that is on Saturday, October 15th from 8:30 to 3:30. Parent invites to be on the committee have gone out, and we've started to receive applicants for that. Staff invites have also gone out, and we've started to receive applicants for that as well. Mr. Hansen is working on identifying 8th grade students that would participate as well. Parent survey went out this week, staff survey went out this week, and the student survey will be going out probably by the end of the week next week. So everything is sort of well in process, and we're working on our state of the district presentation as well. And I've been having conversations with our facilitator. So everything is going according to the schedule I laid out, if anything, maybe a little bit sooner than I originally anticipated. The district is going to undergo crisis training with the Skokie Police Department. We've managed to carve out some time on our Institute Day so that all 4 buildings will be able to be trained by representatives from the police department. We've dealt with some heightened concerns, both from parents and from staff members about safety. Although I will say we also included information about safety in the parent survey for strategic planning and staff as well. And overall, we're getting very, very, very positive ratings in those counts. That being said, we can always try to make sure that we're as up to date as possible and keep our kids and staff members as safe as possible. So we thought it would be a good idea to get a retraining, and so that'll be taking place shortly. And then we also in October are doing a training called the Prepare training. It's the post-crisis response portion of crises, so that we're able to be a little bit more agile and on our feet in responding to a crisis, providing support for trauma, for parents, for students, for staff members, etc. So we have a 2-day training coming up on that. The result of that will be work that will basically come up with our post-crisis training binder, so that we kind of have all the communication templates that we need and all the processes and systems in place, so that if and when something tragic or sad happens, we'll be able to respond in a quick manner. You'll also note that I sent out an announcement about the board elections coming up. I think that went out this morning. So dates and timelines are listed on there if anybody's interested in running for the board. I think the first day to canvass is the 22nd or 20th of September. The packets are due 3rd week in December. It's all laid out in the email. And the last little update I have is, as of today, we have 9 students in the district who are quarantined with COVID and 1 staff member. Overall, been very pleased with the low numbers district-wide that we've seen. I was a little bit worried about coming back and having a little bit of a bump after, long summer and a lot of people getting out there and doing things. And I actually heard on the radio this morning that the CDC is close to announcing the end of the pandemic. They said we're not quite there, but they're getting close to announcing the end of the pandemic phase of COVID.
The announcement is the most important part.
All right, that's all I got.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the reading and acceptance of minutes. I call for a motion to approve the minutes from the August 18th, 2022 Board of Education regular meeting.
Second.
Espinosa,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbeck,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Thank you.
Short list. The consent agenda is our next item of business. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate consideration? And I call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the personnel report authorizing the hire and leave of absence of licensed staff, the hire, change of status of classified staff, including the termination of Thana Odicho and Albert Wolf from the Transportation Department, financial reports, and the destruction of the closed session audio from the February 18th, 2021 meeting.
Second. You signaled it to me and my brain was not clicking.
Jeff thirds.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbeck,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Espinosa.
Yes.
Thank you.
I do not believe we have a NTDSE report this month, so we'll move right on to the adoption of the budget. I call for a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2022-2023 budget as follows. Whereas the Board of Education of Public School District Number 68, County of Cook, State of Illinois, caused to be prepared in tentative form a budget, and the secretary of this board has made the same conveniently available to public inspection for at least 30 days prior to final action thereon. And whereas a public hearing was held as to such budget on the 15th day of September 2022, notice of said hearing was given at least 30 days prior thereto as required by law, and all other legal requirements have been complied with. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of said district as follows. Section 1, that the fiscal year of this school district be, and the same hereby is fixed and declared to be, beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending June 30th, 2023. Section 2, that the budget in its final proposed form be, and the same is hereby adopted, as the budget of this school district for the said fiscal year, thereby appropriating the sum of $30,089,283 from the educational fund, and the sum of $2,891,865 from the operations and maintenance fund, and the sum of $2,340,000 from the debt service fund, and the sum of $1,341,941 from the transportation fund, and the sum of $1,111,250 from the municipal retirement fund, which amount includes $571,250 for Social Security and Medicare, the sum of $4,655,000 from the Capital Projects Fund, and the sum of $220,000 from the Tort Immunity Fund, and that a copy of said budget resolution be filed with the official records of this meeting adopted by the Board of Education this 15th day of September 2022. That was the short one.
This is just the resolution and the final approval action item for the budget from the hearing earlier.
Sturbeck,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Espinosa.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't refill you here.
Please. We need that candy. I call for a motion to adopt the resolution approving TRS Supplemental Savings Plan Employer Participation Agreement as follows. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of Skokie School District 68, Cook County, Illinois as follows. 1. The Supplemental Savings Plan Employer Participation Agreement, EPA, substantially in the form prescribed by the Illinois Teachers Retirement System, TRS, and attached as Exhibit 1, is hereby approved, and the superintendent is hereby authorized to sign and submit the EPA to TRS. 2, in approving and submitting the EPA and participating in TRS's Supplemental Savings Plan, SSP, the board A, fully reserves its rights to prospectively change the terms of its participation in the SSP as provided for in the EPA, including, but not limited to, changes warranted by legislative action, and to terminate its participation in the SSP to the extent permitted by law. B, disclaims and does not assume 1, any fiduciary, custodial, oversight, or administrator duties or responsibilities to employee participants in the SSP or for the SSP design, administrator, or operator. 2, involvement in or responsibility for any investment choices, advice, decisions, amounts, losses, taxes, or penalties made or experienced by employee participants in the SSP. 3, any other duties or responsibilities of any type whatsoever to employee participants or anyone else, except to the extent of the district's duties to withhold the amounts properly directed by the employee participant and confirmed by TRS or its designated SSP administrator, and to pay such amounts into the SSP as directed by TRS. C, the superintendent is authorized and directed to inform and provide for agreement with employees participating in the SSP of the disclaimers set forth above, and to take such other appropriate measures to minimize the risk of liability of the district resulting from participation in the SSP, including requiring employees to provide information regarding participation in any 457B plans offered by other employers, substantially in the form of the attached Exhibit 2. 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption.
So moved.
Second.
So this is a requirement from TRS, the pension system that all of our licensed staff pay into. It was a law that was passed requiring that TRS provide a 457 plan for all of its employees. We currently, as a district, already offer multiple 457 plans, regular pre-tax 457 plans and Roth 457 plans. Our legal counsel said to wait on this until the resolution was prepared to their liking from TRS. They now feel like it's in a place that we can approve it, and we have to do it by September 30th, otherwise we get in big trouble with TRS. So
you're telling us how to vote.
I would never.
Incentivizing. Any questions? Yep. Anything reread?
We have had no employees ask specifically about this plan, but it is a requirement that we have.
Understood.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Espinosa,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Durbin.
Yes.
I now call for a motion to approve the contract between Skokie School District 68 and Lisa Westman Consulting, Inc. for professional development services during the 2022-23 school year in the amount of $44,200.
So moved.
Lisa provides coaching and professional development for our instructional support team and for team leaders and department chairs at the 4 buildings.
As a former Old Orchard staff member
She
once upon a
is,
time
in
in her
fact,
career.
yes.
Okay. Warshaw,
Yes.
Espinosa,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Durbin,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you. I now call for a motion to approve the contract between Skokie School District 68 and Schoolwide, Inc. for professional development services during the 22-23 school year in the amount of $57,000.
So moved.
Second.
And this is a continuation of partnership we have with Schoolwide around professional development and literacy for elementaries and junior high.
Espinosa,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Durbin,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
We'll end our meeting with an FYI. Per Public Act 097-0256, each school board shall report to the State Board of Education on or before October 1st of each year the base salary and benefits of the district superintendent and all administrators and teachers employed by the school district. Prior to this annual reporting to the State Board of Education, the information must be presented at a regular school board meeting. Shall I read the list?
Is that one?
Awkward, is that awkward? If there's no further business to come before the board, I call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sturban,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Calling it at 30 minutes.
Can I get the hammer?
See if the internet- Oh, yeah, well,
All right. I promise the October meeting will be